Rain fell endlessly over the trenches of World War I. The mud reached the soldiers' knees, mixed with blood, rats, and pieces of destroyed equipment. The smell of gunpowder and death had already become part of the air. Among hundreds of terrified men was a young British soldier named Henry Walsh. He was only 22 years old. Before the war, Henry worked on his father's farm in the countryside of England. He had never held a real weapon until he was called to fight. But that morning, he was no longer a farmer. He was just another man trying to survive. The strange silence before the attack made everyone nervous. Some soldiers smoked quietly. Others wrote letters to their families, not knowing if they would survive until the next sunrise. Then the whistle echoed. The commander screamed for them to advance. And within seconds, hundreds of men climbed out of the trenches and ran toward the open field. It was practically suicide. German machine guns immediately opened fire. The sound was deafening. Soldiers fell everywhere. Explosions threw dirt and smoke into the air. Henry ran, trying not to look at the bodies around him. But then it happened. The first bullet hit his left shoulder. The force of the impact spun him backward. The pain was instant, hot, violent. He collapsed into the mud. For a few seconds, he believed he would die there. But then he heard another soldier screaming for help. Henry gritted his teeth and stood up. Even wounded, he kept running. He knew stopping meant death. As he moved forward, another explosion erupted nearby. Dirt covered his face. He could barely see. Then came the second bullet, this time in his leg. The shot tore through his thigh. Henry fell again. Blood quickly poured down his military pants. Around him, men screamed in desperation. Some called for their mothers. Others simply remained motionless in the mud. Even after being shot twice, Henry began crawling toward a fellow soldier trapped near the barbed wire. The soldier was bleeding heavily. Half of his face had been shredded by shrapnel. Henry grabbed the man by the arms and tried to drag him back. The machine guns kept firing nonstop. Then a third bullet struck Henry, this time in his right arm. His rifle fell from his hand. The pain was so intense he nearly passed out. Even so, he continued dragging the other soldier through the mud. Every meter felt impossible. The battlefield looked like hell. Bodies everywhere, black smoke, explosions lighting up the dark sky, and the constant sound of death. Henry finally reached a small crater created by a bomb. There, he and the wounded soldier hid for a few minutes. Both struggled to breathe. The injured man looked at Henry and asked, "Do you think we're getting out of here alive?" Henry stayed silent, because deep down he no longer believed it either. Suddenly, gas began spreading across the battlefield. The Germans had launched poison gas. Desperate soldiers rushed to put on their masks. Anyone who delayed for even a few seconds suffocated to death. Henry tried reaching for his mask, but his wounded arm could barely move. He fought through the pain as he put it on. At that moment, a nearby explosion hurled debris toward him. A piece of metal sliced part of his helmet. And moments later, came the fourth bullet. It ripped through the side of Henry's helmet. By mere inches, it missed his head. The impact left him completely disoriented. A loud ringing filled his ears. He could no longer hear the screams around him. Only a sharp sound, constant. Even after being wounded 4 times, Henry remained conscious. The soldier beside him was no longer moving. Henry realized he was alone. The smoke made everything impossible to see. Slowly, he began crawling back toward the British trenches. Every movement felt like pieces of his body were being torn apart. His blood left a dark trail through the mud. At one point, Henry saw a young soldier standing in the middle of the battlefield. The boy looked completely lost. Maybe he was only 17 years old. Before Henry could shout anything, a bullet struck the boy in the chest. He collapsed instantly. Henry froze. War destroyed everyone equally. Old men, young men, fathers, sons. There were no heroes in that place, only survivors. Night had already fallen when Henry finally reached the trenches. But then the worst happened. A shadow appeared through the smoke. An enemy soldier. The two stared at each other for only a second. The German soldier raised his rifle. Henry tried to move, but he had no strength left. The shot rang out. The fifth bullet hit directly in his chest. Henry immediately fell backward. Everything went dark. For a few seconds, he believed he was dead. But then he noticed something strange. He could still breathe. Barely, but he could. The bullet had struck a small metal medal Henry carried inside his uniform. It was a gift from his mother before he left for war. The object deflected part of the impact. Even so, several ribs were broken. Henry could barely move. The cold night air grew stronger. Around him, the battlefield had gone silent. Too silent. The gunfire had faded away. Now there was only smoke, bodies, and the freezing wind passing through the destroyed trenches. Henry lay there for hours. He stared at the dark sky, trying not to fall asleep. He knew that if he lost consciousness there, he might never wake up again. At times, he thought he heard voices. At others, he saw shadows moving through the fog. The pain was unbearable. His entire body trembled. He could no longer feel his leg. Then, in the middle of the night, lanterns appeared in the distance. Military medics walked among the bodies searching for survivors. Henry tried to scream, but his voice barely came out. One of the medics finally noticed movement. They rushed toward him. When they lifted his uniform and saw the wounds, they were shocked. 5 gunshots, and still alive. The medics carried Henry to a makeshift hospital far from the front lines. For days, he hovered between life and death. The fever would not go away. Infections were common during the war. Many soldiers survived bullets, only to die days later from their wounds. Henry spent weeks unable to walk. Doctors removed metal fragments from his arm and leg. His shoulder never fully healed, and the pain in his chest remained for the rest of his life. But against all odds, he survived. Months later, Henry finally returned home. When he stepped off the train in the small town where he was born, his mother immediately began to cry. She believed her son was dead. Many soldiers never came back, and the ones who did were usually never the same again. Henry tried returning to life on the farm, but the war continued inside his mind. At night, he woke up terrified by imaginary explosions. Any loud sound made him freeze. He rarely spoke about what he had seen in France. But on one of the few occasions he talked about the war, he said a sentence that people never forgot. Surviving was the easy part. The hard part was continuing to live after everything. Henry carried scars for the rest of his life, not only on his body, but mainly in his mind. The 5 bullets that nearly killed him became only a small part of something much bigger. A constant reminder of one of the most brutal periods in human history. Millions of men died during World War I. Many disappeared without even leaving behind their names. And among all those soldiers, Henry became known as the man who survived 5 gunshots. But to him, it was never a reason for pride, because every time he looked at his scars, he also remembered the friends who remained on that battlefield, and who would never return home again.